A couple things that come to memory with Magnum, even outside of the best of 7 series, is as I said earlier, really as brilliant a concept as I thought that was, and how well it went over with the fans. Two other matches that stick out in my mind. One of course was in your hometown, and I don't recall it being one of the best of 7, but I think it was just a match we were working along in the program.
Like maybe one of those chain matches?
No, it wasn't a chain match, but the chain did become involved.
Okay.
Although it wasn't a chain match. No, we were having a match. Ivan was in my corner as Uncle Ivan always was, and this would be several times through my career, I experienced firsthand wrestling fans within the squared circle.
Is that where I looked up and saw more boots in the ring that was supposed to be there?
That would have most likely have been that time, and we're in Magnum's hometown, and we've got him down, and what happened is Baron von Raschke
exactly
hit the ring as well. So it's Uncle Ivan, the Baron, and myself 3-on-1 in Magnum's hometown, and this man takes it upon himself to decide to come and help defend you, and I catch him out of the corner of my eye and coming through the ropes. He's not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but in those days, you heard the stories of Ole Anderson getting sliced from here to here by a knife and by a fan, and you hear the different stories, and so I'm like not taking any chances here. I'm like does he have something? I don't care whether he does or doesn't at this point. He's coming through the ring. Here we go, and I'll never forget he came through, and of course I met him and with a pretty stiff boot to the stomach, which would be of no surprise to you because everything I did was stiff, and so I met him with a stiff, and he went down, and so in the meantime Ivan and the Baron were over on you, and I turned to come back over, and I look, and the guy's getting up again. I'm like, all right. So I go back and boom, I give him another boot. He goes down again. I'm like, okay, that should do it. A little bit harder this time. And I look, and he's getting up a third time. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I went and got my chain and gave him a third boot, and he went down. And only this time I said, I hailed Ivan and Baron. I said, hold this guy down. And I proceeded to take the chain and wham, and just how we used to work it, or at least attempt to work it when we were whipping each other or whatever, and the chain would come across us. But I wasn't really working this one. I boom, and across the guy's head. Well, he stayed down. I'm like, okay, that's. I don't even know if you remember any of this, or you were just down selling.
I was, and I remember looking up and I said, "There's too many feet in here." I was counting. There's supposed to be 3 people. There's 8 feet.
Yeah, right. And so the guy stayed down, and I threw the chain down to proceed back to the finish of our match, what we're supposed to do, because ultimately the babyface is supposed to hit the ring and run us out, and ultimately they do. The babyfaces end up hitting the ring, and of course the cops never did anything because in their mind
it was part
this
of the
guy's
match.
Part of the deal, right? And so when the babyfaces hit the ring, we powder. I'm looking around and I'm like, I'm not seeing my chain anywhere, and I'm like, oh my gosh, another fan got my chain. Well, and no, another fan didn't get my chain. All the cops get around us because the people are livid. We're in your hometown, 3-on-1. Guy tries to hit the ring, tries to help you. He's down. All these, and so they're livid. I mean, they're tossing beer on us, spitting on us, and telling us we're number one in their hearts, and just all kinds of compliments they're slinging our way, and as we were starting to make our way, all the cops around us, we're starting to make our way out of. Up the aisle, I see the shortest cop there, who looks to be about 4'5" and about 200 pounds. In his hand, I see my chain. I'm like, oh, good, okay, he got the chain. But then he starts in on me, the cop, and says, I'm going to get you for assault with a deadly weapon, all this. He starts saying to me as we're walking up the aisle, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, I'm just defending myself here. I mean, it should be obvious. The guy kept getting up, kept coming, and he's going on and on. Well, never breaking character, as of course never I did. I looked at him and went, Uncle Ivan, just spouting off all this Russian because I don't want to break character to these cops or anybody. That's just my mentality, right? But he just keeps going, assault with a deadly weapon, and this. Well, we get back to the dressing room, and Murnick's are the promoters, and Murnick comes in. I'm like, hey, I want my chain back. I want it now. This guy thinks he's gonna. I just defended myself here. He said, let me. Well, a half hour later, taking a shower, getting in the shower, and here he comes. Okay, I got him calmed down, and I don't know if you had ever heard the. Well, and I don't know if you ever heard the end of the story. The whole, that was the high spot in the finish of the story, because weeks later, and maybe a couple months later, Murnick came to me, and we were back up there, and he came to me. He said, "Hey, did you hear what happened to that guy?" I'm like, "What guy?" He said, "Well, you remember the one that attacked you in the ring?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well," he went to court a couple days ago." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, they did end up arresting him that night for coming in the ring." And I said, well, good. Well, that's what they should have done in the first place.
Should have grabbed him.
Threatened me. They're going to, this little stubby guy trying to make a name for himself with a badge, on his chest. And he said, yeah, he went to court, and the judge, pulls, reading through his stuff there, and he asked the guy, I'll never forget, he says, do you have anything to say for yourself? It turns out the guy was in the Navy, stationed there in the Navy, military guy. And of course, she had a few too many bottles of courage that night, a few too many cervezas. And as the judge reads it over, he says, do you have anything to say for yourself? And he says, well, yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I do. I really feel justice was served in the ring that night, sir. And so as the judge reads it over, he reads that the guy was actually taken to the hospital for a concussion where I whacked him with the chain over the head. He was taken to the hospital for a concussion. And the judge looks it over and he says, yeah, I believe you're right. I believe justice was served that night. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever, get in another. And he said, yes, sir. And so that was a high spot for me because, I had guys attack me in the ring, fans, a handful of times. But that was, if you want to call it a memorable one, was against, it was only two guys. It was either you or Flair that they attacked me, but in your hometown. And that's one match that really comes to memory and sticks out in my mind as one that I will not forget in a long time.